Okay, this is what's left of the Jeep, one of the Jeep doors, the driver's door. Because this is a project to try to build this coupe as cheap as possible, I wanted to use as much off the donor vehicle as I could to save on some money. So what I did was cut out the inside panel is off. I cut out where the door handle was and where the lock was on the door skin. Over here on the Model A door, I had one of those little 4-inch grinders with a cutoff wheel, and I cut out the section of where the original handle went, and then I traced this piece over on the door and cut it out so this would fit. Now this is just tacked in, and this is the door handle off the Jeep. And I didn't realize it looks, I don't know, it may be almost ugly, but it's a lot bigger than I thought it would look. It didn't look as big on the Jeep, but I got it here on the tacked into place there. The next thing I found, that with the original Ford hinges, this is just a bolt I got sticking there through there. When they were closed, the gap between here, this was pretty wide, and it was too wide to fit on the Studebaker body. See, here's another one. It's awfully wide. But a few years back, I bought some Chevy hinges on eBay, and you can see they're much narrower, and they would work because you see I already got them mounted here. I put it where the original hinge was, and this sits really close here. With this one here, when that was like that, this part here was too far out that way, and it was actually on the top piece here. This here, if I had used the Ford one, it would have been out here, and it would have stuck right through the windshield frame and right where the window was. So because this is narrower, it's behind the windshield frame, and I was able to use it. So I got it all mounted in there nice. I welded up the third one. I'm only going to use 2 hinges. So I'll put these here over there. Now the next problem that I have to overcome is this. Let me set the camera down here. Okay. Now, this here is the original inside to the Model A door, but I wanted to use the power windows that were in the Jeep. So I drilled out the rivets here, and then along the edge I just sliced it again with that wheel cutter right along the edge here, and took this whole panel out. Alright, and that goes there. And then I thought, well, why don't I see if I can take that panel and put it here. So I took this panel and I laid it down on top of the door. Now that section there, I can cut this out and move this over so it'll fit in the door. But you can see, it could be welded in place here, and a little piece added here. But over here on this side where the door latch was, I already took it out. I would have to trim. I'd have to trim the Model A door for this to fit. So I said, okay. So I started to cut it, and then I realized I looked inside and I saw that there's the window track that goes right straight up through there. And that's exactly where the door latch had to be. So if I had cut this out, I could only roll the window halfway down because it would come down and hit the door latch. So I couldn't use that. So I went out and bought the small size bear claw latch, and I'm running into the same problem by putting the bear claw latch in here, and to work off of the button up there for the handle to open it, it's still going to be in front of the window here. I mean the window channel. So what I'm thinking of doing is mounting it, cutting off right here, and mounting this kind of like on the outside, somewhere along in this lines here, something like that. Now to do that, to get the controls for the lock, the lock is over here. There's another thing, I cut off the Jeep door, the lock, so that's going to be welded in probably right about there. So it'll be lockable. But what I got is a drawing here, what I think I'm going to have to make up. I don't know, let's see if you can make this out here. Get it without the light. Okay, this would be the door handle. I would have to have the rod that was inside the door come down, almost down to the bottom, down into this area here. So it would come here underneath the window, up against the door body, down here, and over to a lever, which would be right here. It would pivot here, so this thing would go up or down. When you push the button, it would pull on that. So if it pulled on that, if I had another rod right next to it, the rod would push up onto this, which this is a very poor drawing of this, but you get the idea. When this goes up, if it pivots here, it's going to push up on this, push this up, which will unlatch it. And the lock, the door lock, which is going to be right around that area, that has to come down to the locking mechanism right here. So I can lock it and unlock it and still open and close it. And these rods would be underneath this channel. Get this out of the way. They'll come down here, under here, to a lever, and then the lever will come back above the window and back up to right around this area where that latch is. So that's what I'm going to attempt. We'll see how it works out. Okay, I've got the piece welded in here now. I cut a little piece here, shaped that. I mounted this piece here onto the bottom of the door, this section here. And then I cut a little piece here, welded that in, then I cut a piece to kind of bring that edge in here, so I cut it like that, welded that in. Same thing over here. I cut a piece like that and up, welded that in there. Then there was a little triangle piece in here. I welded that in. So now this will sit. Just sits right in there like that, and the screws go right in there. Okay, I got the piece in. Got the piece in here. I just put a couple of screws. There's one more screw goes here. I didn't put it in, but just for now. So now the pin, when the pin on the other side of the body hits that, it'll lock it in place. And then when you hit the lever, it snaps open and open the door. Now the next part which would be the tricky part here. Like I said, it would be bringing a rod from the handle all the way down to well, this is right there. There's the window channel. So the bottom of the window, when it's all the way down, it's going to be right about here. So that bell crank's got to be down around here, raised up a little bit. So when it pulls on that, it goes back to this one. Same thing with the lock. The lock's going to have to come back under here and then back up with a bell crank onto the little arm under here. I mean, I could probably extend that arm out a little bit. I don't know yet. And then this one here will go to the handle over there on the inside of the door. When you pull on it, it'll pull that. Let me just put this back here. If the door's closed, so it'll pull on the top one, and that'll open it up. See, when you pull that out, this point, pull it out. Doesn't take much to move, so it'll be. I think I can make it work. And I was thinking about how I was going to make the bell crank from down here, and I picked up the old latch, the old door latch that came out of the Jeep. All right. And what do I got here? There's a bell crank right there. One that could be used for the door. And there's another one right here. Right here. That goes back and forth. That could be used for the door lock. So maybe if I mount this thing like this, sideways, maybe just the base of it where these are mounted, I could come down to the rods to these. This would be out of the way, so this would be swinging kind of like that. There's my bell cranks, and I even got the connectors for the rods. I put one of them on here already. I mean, I'd have to extend it down to this part of the door. But right there's the parts I need. Right on, still using parts off the Jeep. There's the latch, the same latch as that. That's it. That's what grabs the pin when you close the door. The pin goes right in here and it locks on it. But it's got the bell cranks right on it, and it's got the fittings to hold the rods. You'll probably be able to use them. Okay. I got the lock welded in. I cut out the piece. That was on the door of the Jeep with the lock in the middle of it, and I traced that piece onto the door. And I cut it out, put it in, welded in. So now the lock is here. And did some more welding around the door handle. You can see I got the rod going from the door handle down to, goes down to over here, right here onto this part of the latch. And then because it has to go the same direction, as this rod, this one here, the one next to it, I stayed on the same side of the pivot. There's the pivot point. So this one goes back up and goes to the lock. Now, the key, the lock here, comes down. I got a tack welded here. I got to cut off this little extension piece. But this one comes down, and that goes to an end right here. This is a fitting right here. It fits on there. And this one was kind of like it had like a lock, a stop, a positive stop. And I figured that would be perfect for a lock. This one here would just kind of move, and I would think with vibration it would either lock or unlock. But this one here had a positive lock in it. So what I did is, that's why I hooked the key to this one. And then over here, this was the tricky part. The lock up here only has to move 1/4 of an inch. So I had to get this to move just 1/4 of an inch. And you can see over here, that's moving much more than 1/4 of an inch. So what I had to do was, this piece here came up and went out. I had to cut it and move it in to move the connector closer to the pivot point, which is right there. So what I did was I took a tape measure and I put it right here, and I kept moving it back and forth, and found a spot where it moved about 1/4 of an inch, and it was the distance from there to there. That's where it was. So I welded this onto here, got it there, and so now it moves 1/4 of an inch. So you can see there's the lock, and I'll reach underneath the door. I got the key in the dock. There's the key turning it, and now I can push on the knob. All right, now watch. I'll push on the door handle, the button, and it opens up. All right, so you close the door, and then I can lock it. And if I push on the door handle again, see, it won't open, so it stays locked. I turn the key, push on the button on the door handle, and it opens. So it works perfect. That's it. Now, and instead of making a bell crank and a little pivot points for the rods to come down underneath the window and then back over the window all the way up to the other side of the door, I ended up using the latch. I just cut off a few pieces and move stuff around. I did take a little 1/8 plate and welded the latch to the 1/8 plate, and the 1/8 plate goes up against the inside of the door in here, and I welded in a 1/4 inch piece of steel on there. And right now I just got these 2 temporary old bolts. They're just 1/4 inch bolts, but that's what holds this in place. I drilled right through and tapped that 1/4 inch plate in here, and the bolts screw into that. I'll get you some button head or something that doesn't stick out and stupid like this, but that'll hold it. Alright, I'll let you take a look at the other side of the door. Okay, and there's the it's just lightly ground. It's not finished ground yet, but there's the door handle off the Jeep, and there's where I welded in the key. There's the key. So that's what it looks like on that side. That's the door. Alright, and I'll show you the other side again. Okay, here you can see, here's the window track. It goes right down to there, and you got these rods here above the window and these below the window. I got a little piece of glue on, and just slide it down there to show you. So you see the window, and that's where the window has to be, and it works. So now I can roll the window all the way down. I use the small size bear claw latch with the old Jeep latch, and the rods that were in the door went with it. So I pretty much used all the parts up. Still using parts from the Jeep to make stuff work, and that's it.